Kלים Perches Mishnah base. We're carrying on with the din of Toich Toichai. Let's just recap the din of Toich Toichai. We have an outside klicheres, the main klicheres, and of course, the sheretz inside the klicheres, anywhere inside the Toich of klicheres, is metame the klicheres. And who adin, if the klicheres is already tummy, then any oichlin mashkin which find itself anywhere within the Toich of the klicheres become tummy. However, what happens if we create a toich within a toich? One takes another kli and suspends or puts this kli inside the outer kli, so that now this kli forms an area which is surrounded by its walls. So it's a toich inside a toich. So the rule is, if this new inside kli, if its own Pesach is not below the Pesach of the outer Kli, so it's Meshuka, it sinks into it, but not completely, so that the Pesach of the inner Kli is outside, thus forming an area which is separate from the outside Kli, then this area is called Toich Toichai. And it says the Mishnah, as opposed to the case of the Kaveres Pechus in the Mishnah Aleph, where we had this Toich Toichai actually being created by something which was not a Kli by Kaveres Pechusa. Now it's heading with the basic din, Hoysa Shleima, the Kaveres was a Kaveres Shleima. So you have your outside Tanur, your outside Kli Cheres. Inside you have a Kaveres, which is a beehive, but it's Shleima, it's a complete Kli. But the Pesach of this Kli is actually sticking out, it's facing outside. So we have our area, our Toicha area is completely surrounded by the walls of the inner Kli. So in a box, a chemis is a leather satchel, again suspended into the outside Kli Cheres. So, but in such a way that the Pesach, the opening of that inner Kli, is actually outside the confines, the Toich of the outer Kli Cheres. In such a case, we have now created an area called Toich Toicha, and the rule is Hasheretz B'Seicha, if there is a sheretz inside this new Toich Toicha, Hatanur Tor, it is not able to be Metame the Tanur, because the Pasuk says a Kli Cheres where the sheretz is in its Toich, but not if the sheretz is in its Toich Toicha. Similarly, Hasheretz B'Tanur, if for instance the Kli Cheres is already Tomei, because there's a sheretz inside it, Oichlin Shebeseicha Torah, any Oichlin or Mashkin which find itself inside the Toich Toichai remain Tahor. Because the Torah says when a Kli Cheres is Tomei, any Oichlin or Mashkin inside it become Tomei. And the Drosh is B'Toichai, but not Oichlin or Mashkin which are B'Toich Toichai. That's the basic din of Toich Toichai. Now the Mishnah is going to move on, Nikavu. What happens if this Kli, which we're trying to attach to it, a din of Toich Toichai, has a hole in it? At which stage does the Kli become Ois Kli, become not a Kli, and is now not able to be Matzel because of the din of Toich Toichai? There's a big nachlokas in the Rishonim how to learn this Nikvu. We learn with a simple pshatas, which is the pshat of the Vilna Gaon of the Gra, that the rule for Nekev is, if the Nekev is such that the Nekev is able to be Metaher that Kli, then it is also the same Nekev that ruins the din of Toich Toichai. So in fact, when you have a Nekev which makes the inner Kli Tahor, that Kula, that now the inner Kli is Tahor, actually now becomes a Chumrah. It is now not able to be Matzel Medin Toich Toichai, because Toich Toichai only applies to a Kli which is Mekabel Tumah. But once it's a Kli and is not, and is, well, when I said Kli Mekabel Tumah, it can be actually a Kli which is Eina Mekabel Tumah, for instance, if it's a Kli Even. But now if it's got a hold and it's called a Shever Kli, it is now not able to be Matzel with the din of Toich Toichai. And therefore the rule of Nikvu are similar to the rules we had in the beginning of Perek Gimel, the rules for a hole which makes a Keli a Shever Kli. Now what's important to note here, the Mishnah is carrying on and telling us the rules which we know from the beginning of Perek Gimel. These rules are actually the rules for a hole of a kli cheres. Now the toich rules apply to any kli. When you have a kli cheres and you want to create a toich by putting another kli inside, that kli could be a kli eitz, it could be a kli oir. It doesn't make a difference whether the kli is mekabel tumah or not, because the kli is not mekabel tumah from a kli cheres. Only ochel and mashkin can be mekabel tumah from a kli cheres. So the rule of toich will apply to any kli which creates an area of a toich. But the Mishnah's rules now telling us the size of the holes, these rules, the Mishnah's mashalim of such a hole actually apply only to kli cheres. And if we had another kli, then the particular rule applying to kli matches or to kli eitz or to kli oir would have to be applied to this Mishnah. But in the case of a kli cheres, in other words, when the toich is being formed by another kli cheres itself, then the rule is asur la'ochlin shi'uron b'zeisim. The rule for kli cheres, having a hole in it to make it tohor, we saw in the beginning of Perek Gimel was if the kli cheres was made for foodstuffs for ochlin, and the shiur, how big does a hole have to be to render that kli cheres a sheva kli shi'uron b'zeisim? If the hole is big enough to be a moitzi zayis, then the kli cheres becomes a shever kli, and ochanama for its tumah, it is not able to be makabel tumah by in it itself. However, it is also now not able to be matzil for the din of toich. So if this kli cheres with a hole in it of a moitzi zayis is suspended into a bigger kli cheres, then a sheretz that finds itself inside the kli cheres, the sheva kli cheres, is not able to be regarded as being separate from the outer big kli cheres. There is no rule of toich, and the sheretz will be able to be metame the outer kli cheres because we do not have the hatzolah of toich, because that inner kli is broken. If the keli is also the mashkin, shurim b'mashkin. We had the rule also, if the kli cheres is made for mashkin, then the rule, what size nekev is matayr for mashkin, if the hole is big, called koines mashka, i.e. the hole is big enough that were you to take the kli and insert it into mashkim, the mashkim would be able to seep in from the outside into the inside of the kli. That's called a hole of koines mashke, which is big enough to make the kli cheres tahor, and therefore, because it's a hole big enough to be matar the kli cheres, it's now also able to ruin the din of toich, and now this inner kli is not able to stop the sheretz inside it being matame the outer kli cheres, and we do not have the hatzolas, the special hatzolas of toich. Also, if we have a kli made for zeisim and mashkin, matilin oisel lechumra, you have to go lechumra b'choinis mashke. Here we are going to have the rule reversed from the rule of Perek Gimel. Let's understand this. We have a keli which is used for Eichlin and Mashkin. So the din is you always go L'chumra. In Perek Gimel, when we were dealing with the actual ability of the Kli to be Mekabel Tumah itself, so you've got a keli which is used for food, for Eichlin, and for Mashkin. For instance, it's used for gulash, it's used for the bits of meat, and it's used for the soup. So at which point does this Kli become Tahor? Does it become broken? So the Mishnah says you go L'chumra, which means the hole has to be bigger. It's not good enough just to have a hole Mekonis Mashka. You have to go L'chumra, and the keli only becomes Tahor when the hole is big enough, when the hole is Kamoitzi Zayis, then the hole is big enough to say now the keli is Tahor and is not able to be Mekabel Tumah. In this Mishnah it's the reverse. In this Mishnah, when the Kli is regarded to be Tahor, that's a Chumrah, because when the Kli is Tahor, it is now not able to be Matzel with the din of Toich Toichai. So going L'chumra here is to say that as soon as you have a small hole, it's already regarded as Sheve Kli for the purposes of that for Toich Toichai, you don't have your Hatzolah. So in Perek Gimel, when we're dealing with the actual Kabbalah's Tum of the Kli itself, Matidim as the Chumra meant B'moitzi Zayis. Here, when we make the Kli a Sheve Kli, that is a Chumra. Because now we're saying it's not able to be Matzel Toich Toichai, Going l'chumra means the whole, as soon as the whole is a koines mashke, the kli cheres is regarded to be a sheva kli, and is now not able to be matzil metoich toichoi, and therefore a sheretz inside it will be able to be metama the outside kli cheres, and vice versa. If the outside kli cheres is already tomei, then any oichel and mashkin found in the inner kli will also become tomei because they